All right, guys, so what we're about to go through is going to feel like punishment to some degree. We're going to do some hard surface manual retopology. And so there's any number of reasons why you might do this. You might be handed off a really bad concept model, perhaps, or might get scanned data, whatever the case. You might need to convert a low poly mesh into a high poly mesh with more detail and try to work off of a previous 3D model anyways. Or you might be getting a concept model that needs to be converted into like a mid poly that can be used in a game engine, or a high poly model that you got to retopo to do a low poly model for that you can bake to anyways. So there's a number of reasons why you need to learn this, but it's pretty challenging and it's not that much fun. I think it's worse than UV mapping or just even standard retopology on organic forms, but we're going to get through it anyways. Something you might want to practice at least. I get used to working with. So this actually came from one of the guys that watches his channel. He was curious how you might go about, trying to save something like this at least, where you have a bunch of booleans going crazy and mismatching cylinders here. So something to keep in mind when you're modeling your cylinders, especially if you're going to go to something like subdivision, they need to kind of have different resolutions basically. Like the big cylinders need to be a higher resolution so that they match the smaller cylinders, which would be usually a lower resolution, not the inverse, which is happening here, where this one's high resolution and this big one's lower resolution. They need to kind of match, basically. All right, so with that in mind, a lot of times it helps to take this base mesh, if it is a Boolean model, duplicate it, right-click, and then convert it to a mesh so that we don't destroy everything down there. We'll have something else to work on. So we can actually just hide that now. And it's kind of the same as working with your standard retopology, but it's going to be a little bit different. So let's just get into this with a plane first. We're going to do Shift-A, create mesh plane, go into edit mode. Our plane's way over here, so I'll bring it over here for a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit Alt-Z and M, merge at center, so we get a single vertex that's somewhere in here. Now this vertex, we can move it around. It's just going to float around in space, but we're going to turn on some snapping. We're not going to check this on. We're going to hold Control to use this instead. But we're going to do vertex, possibly edge, and face project, or you can do all three at the same time. So you can hold Shift and select all of them. Turn on backface culling. We'll see we can get that vertex. Now when we move this around, if we hold Control, we can snap it. Also, keep in mind, this is really not a beginner tutorial whatsoever. So I'm not going to be explaining maybe every shortcut and hotkey throughout this process. But it's definitely going to try you, even if you're an experienced 3D modeler. It can be pretty rough. So I snap this to this corner here. When we're doing subdivision, like let's say we're converting this to a subdivision mesh, we know that we need 3 edges to hold these kind of corners usually, right? So, or 3 vertices. So we can just take this single vertex, snap it to that position, hit E and hold Control and start snapping it around. Now, when this subdivides, it loses volume. So we're not actually going to have this in the correct position. We'll need to tweak this later on, but a lot of times it's easier to just snap to the mesh and then go back and tweak it later. But we just keep pressing E and snapping these things around. And we got a lot of mesh to get through here. So it's best to understand why speed is important now when you're modeling and getting really comfortable with your modeling tools. So when you're using snapping, for example, if you press E and then hit Y to use a constraint, if I hold Control, I can snap to this edge, anywhere on this edge, and it will push that vertex out to that position there, basically, right? See how that works? Yeah. So now we can take that, bring it back here, press F. We have a face like so now, or excuse me, we have edges like so. Select them all, press A, press F, and we'll have this setup going. Okay, and this is great because now we can actually start to maybe work with this a little bit and start to cut it up. If we're going to do a subdivision mesh, we're going to need to run out the additional edges we needed for this process here anyways. And just start gridding it up more or less in this case. Okay. So at some point, we'll be able to take this whole segment on the outside, perhaps. All these segments anyways. Press E, Z, hold Control, bam. See how that works out? It's really not that bad. It just takes time to get through all this, but maybe we do E, Z again and hold Control and snap it down there. Okay. That's just something we might go through. Now, over here, select the edge, hit E and then hold Control, boom. Select that all the way through there. All right. So you can see the same thing is going to happen pretty much here at the bottom. Send a vertex out there. We'll put it out here as well. /, and then now we can do a select through here. Press F. And we more or less have everything going on the same that we had going on the top. For whatever reason, our normals are inverted. If you don't see this, by the way, turn on backface calling. And then that way you can hit Alt-N and flip them when you need to flip them. Okay. So down here we have to go through and dice this up as well. So we'll go from corner to corner, go from there to there, I guess, and then from here to here, and here to here. So this one should go to a vertex over here, by the way. Okay, so yeah, we made this basic primitive shape for the most part by doing this in this manner. Now, some of these are going to need additional edges, perhaps. Later on, it would be likely that you would want to do this, where you have your boundary edges, right? So if I inset this area and I hit B, we can maybe inset it. Well, actually, we don't want to press B. We want that edge on that inside there. Okay, so we do want to have a holding edge around the edge here. And we'll do the same thing down here at the bottom, so we just press I and inset that, right? Now, I'm going to go ahead and make this easier to clean up by hitting KCA, cutting off this whole section here. So I can just drag through, select all that, press X and delete vertices. Oop, helps if you hit Alt-Z when you do that. And delete those vertices there like so. And now we have that set up. All right. So now we can take this whole segment here, and we can turn on the Retopology shading as well. Newer versions of Blender have a new menu for it, but you'll find it in that new little section. I'm on 3.6, but we're going to go ahead and press E and X. You can see we can drag that all the way down to the other side if we needed to, so we can start working in this area now if we wanted. We don't know what we'll need in the middle yet, so there's no point in adding these additional edges like this. It's better to wait to add subdivision and just try to quad model everything, and you can figure out where your subdivision issues are later on, perhaps. But the same process is going to take place through this whole thing. You can literally go through and just start lining things up as needed and start working out your mesh here, perhaps, right? Define the axes a lot of times can be quite useful. Now, when you're going to start working on some other things, like this cylindrical piece here, this one's got a little bit of a problem here. A lot of vertices in here. It was a Boolean, so it's not cleaned up, which means we have to do Boolean cleanups as well. And that'll happen along the way as basically so. I would personally probably take this section here, hit Control Numpad plus, and just separate it. So you're going to want to start separating your meshes out, by the way. It's going to save you a lot of trouble and hassle as you go through this process. Whenever you can save a piece of mesh, by the way, like you can use it. You know, don't be afraid of ripping this thing apart, using the different little parts or edges or vertices that you need, and then just moving along with it anyway. So this view here is kind of a little annoying sometimes, but you can also use the cursor selector to get in here, to start cursor selecting things very quickly. Try to grab everything we need in this area. Since it's not loops, it's all needs to be kind of fixed. We'll be able to do this very fast this way. Oop, try that again. Cursor selector is C, by the way, just so you know. Make it bigger or smaller with mouse wheel. Middle mouse click gets rid of stuff, right? So we can knock all that out fairly fast anyways. Sometimes you'll select a little bit too much, perhaps. You can always turn on X-ray and get rid of that stuff later on. So we're going to try to get all this selected. And there we go. So I'm going to hit Alt-Z. I selected some stuff back here I don't really want to select yet. Maybe stuff like that. So this whole area, maybe we try to use this, okay? Hit P, separate selection. Like so, all right? So when you have things that are symmetrical and then things that aren't symmetrical, like this is potentially, well, this is still technically asymmetrical, but it's fairly symmetrical. So the thing here is that we can maybe work it symmetrically for a bit and then try to correct what we don't want symmetrical. However, anything that is symmetrical, or you can usually just, you know, separate it, refix the origin point so that you can use the symmetry. You use symmetrize with Mesh Machine, things like that. Or mirror modifiers anyways. And in our case here, it's already got the origin point down the center, so it's not a big deal. If I was to symmetrize this, say left to the right side, you'll see it actually puts that little hole over here. We can fix that easily though, so that's not a big deal. And we can save us a lot of time basically by just working only half of this this mesh at this point. So we / this, we can save this thing for sure. You can see there's a little bit of an issue here, right? This cylindrical piece is very high resolution. This cylindrical piece is not as high resolution. So we have all these extra vertices going on. We don't want to shift or deviate these ones for the most part. We can get away with that sometimes if we have additional little edges going through here. But in this case, it would be better if we try to avoid it. And so we'll grab these vertices, send them to this point by holding Control and clicking through and hitting merge at last, okay? So we merge at last, and that's how you can clean these up super fast usually, just so you know. You can see we get a very low resolution here in this area. So our cylinder is going to become very low resolution as well because of that reason. And we could symmetrize this, so there we go, this side's okay. Down here, these are very high resolution compared to this, right? Sometimes you can try to rescue these things. Sometimes you got to try to work them down smaller, which means you may even end up remodeling some things, okay? In this case, I think we can rescue this one. We'll try it, but it's just something to keep in mind. Also, when these areas on the edge here, like the vertices match up, you can usually turn these back into quads very easily. So you just grab that section there, hit Control-T, and then Alt-J. That'll usually convert it back into quads. And say down here, if you try that same thing, you'll see that some of it did. Maybe some of it didn't. I added a bunch of little extra triangles down here, which actually isn't that bad of a solution for it. If you weren't going to a subdivision mesh, perhaps. Possibly get away with that, actually. But this one isn't quite where I'd probably want it. Get rid of that one. Okay, I'm going to dissolve these back. We'll try to work these out. Shouldn't be too bad of a deal. We can join through here, maybe. Rid of those. We might be able to Control-T, Alt-J that. Okay, so most of that seems to be working out, except for that center section. All right, symmetrize real quick. See if we can. Just get rid of some of this in here real quick. I tried to knife cut them back together, perhaps. Across the symmetry there. Send that one that way. These here, let's merge those down. Whoop. Merge them down to there. We'll have to go all the way through with that shape, perhaps. So just symmetrize it. We won't have such a big deal there. Also, if you Alt middle click, you can kind of zoom around on your mesh a little bit and look at different things. Get different little areas and cracks and crevices. If you ever need to just hide a section, you press H. You can hide it. You can hit H or Alt H to bring everything back. Or you can do Shift H to hide everything else but what you have selected. Just keep that in mind. It helps navigation, I guess. Easiest way to do that. So ES, merge at center. I think we'll be all right with that for now. Let's do a loop cut if we can. Oh, we can't. Many vertices back here. So this is the same process back here. You might get away with shifting some of these in here. It might not be such a bad deal. I think this one we'll leave alone. We'll push this one out like that for now. We'll leave that one alone for just a second. I don't know about that one yet. We'll push that one up, push that one up. All of these in here will merge to that one. And that to there. There's a double back here. Okay, that's good. Let's see what we can do back here. This can go up. We can GG twice that one up a little bit. Balance it out. And these ones can just go down to the bottom, I guess. And then we can symmetrize. We'll have that set up. A little bit cleaner here. Sometimes you might have an additional edge running out that you just don't really need, like something like this. We'll X that, get rid of it. And then let's see. Sometimes you can leave n-gons as well. But what we're going to do eventually at some point is have to have additional edges. to hold these areas in place, so you'll have your boundary edges or border edges or whatever. So we'll get to that in a second. Throw a loop cut in here because we're going to connect it to that vertex there. Okay, and we'll do a loop cut. Send it up for now. Might be able to work that different later. All right, and our biggest challenge is going to be these guys down here. Now, these things really want to run out like this. We don't have the edges for that, so this is going to technically be wrong. I think what we're about to do here. We really shouldn't do it, but we're going to. And sometimes, depending on the purpose of the mesh, it might be okay, but it really comes down to like how you plan on using this thing. So connecting these through the symmetry could be quite useful. But you'll see here that we don't have any option to go down with these. We can't really do that. So we actually have to send them all the way out there as well. And that's where things get a little bit, maybe not so great. It's kind of the wrong way of doing it, but it can happen. It is possible, right? So you'll see why here in a second. Let's see how many edges or vertices we have here. We have a total of 6 vertices. Let's do 6 loop cuts then. So you can bump that to 6. There you go. Control T, Alt J should fix that, hopefully. Yep. There you go. Symmetrize that. All right. There we go. So what else we got to fix here in this area? All right. So there's a triangle here at this corner. What we're going to eventually do is run. I'm not sure if that's going to work out there at the top, but we'll run it out for now. We're going to need an additional holding edge at some point. I'm going to run it through there like that, all the way to the bottom. There. And I'm going to run it back through this area as well. Like that, okay? Now, this will actually be a quad here, just so you know. These don't need to stretch out so far that way. They actually would be better if they were positioned something like that. Okay? It'll help it out a little bit, perhaps, because we got a big n-gon down here, apparently. That I just realized we've created. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. Maybe we can use it. Who knows? Sometimes you can get away with using an n-gon. There's a triangle here now. So let's just run an edge out here like that. I'll turn that into a quad. And no luck here at the top though. So let's push that through. We'll just leave a triangle for now. Sometimes you have to leave triangles or n-gons. It's just the way it goes sometimes, and it's unfortunate, but what happens. I dissolve that one. I'm going to connect that out to there. Connect that out to there. These can go across the middle. That'll turn into a quad. And you can see what's happening there, okay? So we do need an additional holding edge right through here. You see how it's like going backwards? Maybe we don't want that. Maybe press E or loop cut and then press E and F. And we can make it even and do that number like that. So there we go. This also, let's try doing this again. We're going to push it a little bit forward so it comes out at a little bit of an angle like that. At some point we want a loop that goes through the bottom here and connects to there. Press J. This also will have another boundary edge. Go through something like this. So I'm kind of cutting what I want here, what I want to occur. I don't care if it's working yet. I just care that it's there, okay? I know I'm going to need it probably at some point. So once you do that, you might have to figure out like how to get this corner to work in this area. Usually, yeah, oh, there's an extra vertex, that's good. It goes down to the corner like that. Yeah, usually you do an end pull. Bring that one down. And we can bring this one forward. Yep. I don't know. That's not quite right. Let's not do that. It is kind of what I need to do, but this needs to be up here actually. So let's Control Z back a second. I did something wrong there. Let's pull this one forward like that. All right. It shifts this edge a little too much for me. I don't really care for that. This one can go backwards back there. But I don't really like it doing that. So at some point also you would have another one going through here. Okay. And then maybe we just go to there. We have a big triangle here. Another triangle there. Let's do this number like that. I'll turn that into a quad. I don't know if that's going to be the best solution for that though. It's what we did the same thing that we did in this corner. It looks complicated. Well, normally this is 3 faces, 3 quads with an end pole. This is kind of the same deal here, but it's like forced into that one somehow. I don't know how I did that, but sure. All right, anyways. It looks like it will probably work, so that's okay. And there, so we'd have this go all the way around at some point. And there you go, you can symmetrize that. And we should be close to being able to subdivide this one, I think. Yeah, if we subdivide this, we hit Control 1 or Control 2. We'll start seeing how it looks when it subdivides. Turn it off in edit mode. Oh, we didn't finish this section here. So we can, relax this too. Maybe push that back a little there. Press J. Join it. Make sure it's all good. Might need a couple of loop cuts in there, maybe. Maybe a couple on the front too wouldn't hurt. Oh, we don't have a loop here, so it doesn't work. Let's join these two. Dissolve that. Dissolve that. That'll be a loop. Bam. So this is why it's important to understand how to work with quads extremely well. Sometimes it can be quite useful to you. Okay. And there we go. Sometimes you can always do, sometimes you can just do reductions if you need to. Just keep the mesh a little bit easier to work with. So later, something really bad's happening back here, so I don't know what it is. I'm going to press KCA, cut through there, hit Alt-Z, select all that, delete it. And that looks a little bit better now. All right, so even though these were like extremely high density here, this is technically not right down here. You can actually see a little bit of that error taking place, perhaps. There's an idea here that you can take this whole edge maybe and do a bevel on it. Use 2 segments, change the shape to a 1, so you get a little Korean bevel like that. And now you can do something like that, shade it smooth, and be a really tight edge. But it does in fact push that these n-gons, right? They create an e-pole. So if I turn off optimal display, usually they create an e-pole. It should be in here somewhere. If it is in here, I don't know where it's at, but it's like right here, I think. It's really squished. So with that in mind, that's just going to keep that section pushed up away from the border or the boundary there. So that'll help that out quite a bit. And later on, you can add additional loop cuts here, perhaps. You see, we couldn't go all the way around with that one because this is an n-gon up here at the top, apparently, which I just realized. So what do we do with this one? Well, we might get away with taking this section and get a hold of all of it. Get it all? No, not on the other side either. Okay. Then Shift H, hide everything else. Press K, C, A. We're going to cut right to the front there. What I want to do is grab this whole section right here. I'm going to do an inset. You see it goes crazy because I have edge rel on by default. I'm going to turn that off. And change your Blender tools in a key map. You change the default settings. But okay, so this will have to get worked out here. Now we got to figure out what else we got to do here. Get that area to work with that n-gon. I was hoping we could just do like an inset, turn off edge rail. And we would get a boundary loop here, which we do. The other side's still messed up, but we can dissolve this one. Okay, so you can use n-gons, guys. It's not impossible. It's just not preferable. You can see it actually kind of works out decently, I think, here. But that's going to be a judgment call on your behalf when you get to that point if you're going to work with something like that. These areas become, super challenging in a lot of ways because of, first of all, asymmetry, but, you have to add it's really odd kind of cylinders to another piece, perhaps. Like this is an odd cylinder, that would be an odd cylinder. Like I was saying, this is not really for the faint of heart. It's a pretty challenging overall experience, I would say. If you're a beginner, really working up to this point to be able to work with subdivision, at least in this way, is extremely challenging. And but we can delete these faces. We can do EY hold control snap. And get that going. EY hold control snap. AM merge by distance. There we go. Now that side's patched up, so it's asymmetrical again. And now if I was to symmetrize, we'd actually mess up the other side, so we don't really necessarily need to or want to do that. And this over here is going to get rather frustrating, I think. So I'm going to try my best to do this, but we'll see what happens. We're going to press E, hold control, and snap to there. This one's going to be E, hold control, snap to there. Maybe E, hold control, and snap to somewhere over here. We'll just go to the midpoint, I guess. E, hold control, and snap to... Oh. Sometimes you'll have a hard time snapping to certain areas, so you can zoom in a little bit. It might help you out a little. In this case, oh, somehow I'm extruding that edge way back there. No, or vertex. E, hold control. Is that the right one? There you go. Good. What we got going on up here? Okay, so that's going and dipping back that way. All right. So I have a feeling this is not going to turn out exactly how we want it to. I thought I had put the edge out here. That thing go. Maybe I didn't. Okay, let's bring it. I did the bottom one, I guess. You have X-ray on. Sometimes it goes to like other vertices in the background. I don't, just careful with that, I guess. So I'm going to pull this one out to here. And I have 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So we'd have an 8-sided cylinder, possibly. We'd have another section out here somewhere. One out to the side, one at this quarter. And those would connect, all right? So we'd have more or less a loop going through here at some point. And it's having a hard time selecting that apparently, but use the cursor selector real quick. So we're going to fill these real quick. I don't know why it's creating doubles. Okay. Press A and merge by distance real quick. All right, so this is it's not quite balanced. Do you see how it's like off? Cylinders with subdivision really want to be balanced very well. This is not going to cut it, I think, in this area, but we have kind of choices to make. Do we're going to have to shift this one around a little bit, unfortunately. And then also, I think I'm going to take this whole segment because the base isn't going to change at this point. So I'm going to take this whole segment here and separate it. If I can get a hold of it again, that'd be great. There you go. So it's just a wireframe cage right now, but we can go through and fill some of this real quick. Get it going like that. A, Alt, N, flip. I need to figure out what I'm going to be doing with this whole piece overall. So let's bring this forward. We're going to press EX real quick.
I'm going to line it to the right. I'm going to press GX, hold control, snap it to there. And I'm just trying to figure out what the balance is going to look like here. I'm going to loop tools and circle this. Rotate it if I can. Try not snapping over there. Yeah, we got to figure out how we're going to get this in this position, basically, where it makes sense. Hold shift and you can rotate and kind of wind it up like a clock or whatever. So sometimes you just got to get it close enough to matching what you originally had, and it should be okay. And this one and this one, I'm going to dissolve it real quick. And I need to dissolve this vertex as well. Got rid of my edge there. All right. Press change, bring it back. Yeah, so there's a little bit of a twist going to this thing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it kind of is because I need this vertex like right there. So I got to figure out how to shift these things just right where I get exactly what I want out of this. I'll press F here so I can just grab a face. Okay, loop tools, circle it again, just in case. Yeah, okay, so this is what's going to happen. This one needs to be shifted closer to this edge, I think, ultimately. But you know what? I'm not going to worry about that just yet. Instead, I'm going to dissolve that edge. I'll leave a little twist to it, and I think if we combine it later on to this solid back here, we might be able to add additional edges in here somehow. And that might be able to solve that issue a little bit quicker with whatever we have going on here. But for now, I think it's okay-ish. It's not really that great, but we definitely want to work on that one more, I think. You can see like it's starting to make sense. You see how it like kind of pokes through the mesh like that? Only a few of them are a little bit off on this side. Yeah, so maybe we could get away with that. Who knows? Yeah, it's kind of shifted pretty far though. We would have to add an additional edge in here somehow. Maybe an E-pole or something. All right, so close enough counts for now, I'm going to say. Not ideal, but you do, when you're making cylinders, you want them to be evenly distributed. This probably wouldn't be a good idea to do that. It would be better to have an edge run through like that. Let's forward slash it a second. And you can kind of see what I'm, kind of where it's going wrong now, I guess. Trying to go with this anyways. And it also needs an additional loop in it at some point. Connect back up to that center point there. I'm just going to shift this one forward. Join it there. Okay, so we can bevel this whole edge. ES, merge it center. You can do grid fills in these areas as well, by the way. You don't have to leave them like that. The problem with grid fills is eventually if you do loop cuts, it runs through it. So a lot of times I find it's easier just to put them to a pole so I can run a pole to it maybe if I need to later on. In this section here, maybe we can do out to here and do that. And then we could do a loop right there and then merge that to there. Yeah. I don't know how that would work out. It didn't work out. It might work out over here when we try to go in this direction later on. Might be able to do something like that. That's a possibility. Yeah. Yeah, so things can get kind of complicated. Like I was saying, this is going to feel like punishment for some of you. It's not really that fun at a certain point. This could be a holding edge all the way at the top that goes all the way out the back. And so let's just dissolve the face. So you select them both, press Control X, you dissolve that like that. And so let's go back with this one. We should have, okay, something like that now. We can join this to this perhaps. They mostly match up except for this corner here. We're going to do a knife cut down, merge it to there. And this one would just run right out the back too, like that. We have a little quad, tri-quad thing going on there. AM merge by distance real quick. Let's dissolve that. All right. I think we got a gap in here or something. Looks like there was a gap somewhere. Sometimes when you see like a little sparkle on an edge, it's usually a gap. But in this case, it doesn't seem too bad. Oh, look at this. This one can join here as well. Whoop, or maybe not. Not yet anyways. Hold on a second. We'll shift it forward a little bit. Yeah, so there's all kinds of different edges you can potentially run out, and just don't symmetrize that one. I'm going to take these ones forward, so I'm just going to GG twice it. Yeah, something like that. Okay, pretty wild setup. We could do another loop right here maybe, if we need it. So let's do, press E, make it even. There we go. Shade smooth, done. All right, so that should look better later on when we get to the point of attaching it to the rest of this, right? So there's a lot more here to do. Obviously, we'll be here for a very long time if I was to go through this whole thing. But I think by now you get an idea, or at least a taste of what is possible with just understanding subdivision in general, being able to work with quad meshes. You go through this whole project all the way through. You'll do the inside, you'll do the outside, you'll do this edge, you'll do that edge. Trying to get it all work together is definitely one of the most challenging and hardest times you're going to have, you know, doing things manually like this. So, but not impossible, obviously. Take your time on it, and you can get some pretty good results out of it. Even like this does not seem like it would work here, right? Like this is a very kind of crazy looking cylindrical piece that was going down to a very small amount of vertices, and it just doesn't seem like it should work, but it does. It's just, that's what happens when you start doing this a little bit more. You'll find that you can do a lot of really crazy stuff sometimes. We do have an E-pole here and an E-pole here as well, so we can connect that, and that's just going to be a quad now, just so you know. Like I'm saying, you can use E-poles to, we probably would have never had a problem with them being there like that, because basically it creates an N-gon creates an E-pole, so we just have an E-pole here now. So I mean, it's like shifting it around a little bit maybe, but that's the case. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. You learned a lot. I will check you out on the next one. All right, take care.